Hi, everybody. Welcome into Sports Talk Chicago. My name's Jon Zaghloul. Great to have you here on Channel 59.3, BPOD TV and Roku. Big news. There's more news that's come out about Matt Nagy and Justin Fields, and this one might shock you. It only gets worse. We'll explain in just a moment. Before we get started, make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Jon Z Sports and on Facebook at Jon Zaghloul. You to watch more of this show, search up Sports Talk Chicago on YouTube or go to sportstalkchicago.com. You to watch more shows from the BPOD TV network, search up BPOD TV on YouTube. I want to start today with this. It's pretty apparent that Matt Nagy sabotaged Justin Fields. Might get old to be talking about this. I've seen people comment saying, John, enough already? Get over it? I'd love to. I'd love to sit here and look forward to Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles and this new Bears team. But sometimes you need to hold people accountable, too. Matt Nagy left here with very little fanfare. Nobody covered it too much. New reports came out after the fact, and nobody's asked him or talked to him about what happened here in Chicago once he got to Kansas City. Everybody's soured on the story. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to ask questions. And to me, it's a little bit annoying. Maybe I have a problem, but I like closure. I want to know what really happened here in Chicago. I want to know why he sabotaged two young quarterbacks' careers in Mitch Trubisky and Justin Fields. I want to know why after 2018 the Bears couldn't win. I want to know why and how things changed after 2018. What prompted the change in performance? What prompted him to lose his players? What prompted him to trash one quarterback and yet trash another that was drafted for him? How'd this all happen? If I could sit down with Matt Nagy for 5 minutes, I'd ask him all those questions and see if he answered any of them. I don't have that privilege. But we can decipher things based on new reporting that continues to come out. Report came out on Twitter that discussed Justin Fields and his play calling and how he did last year based on the plays that were called by Matt Nagy. You really want to listen to this. I'm going to read verbatim. Quote, last season, Fields completed 57 of 84 passes with play action for 509 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, and a passer rating of 102.2. Without play action, he completed 124 of 213 passes for 1,361 yards, 5 touchdowns, all 10 of his interceptions, and a passer rating of 65.5. Fields' yards per attempt shot up from 6.4 without play action to 8.9 with it. His completion rate went from 58.2 to 61.4, and his big-time throw rate went from 4.3% to 12.7%. Per Pro Football Focus, a big-time throw is, quote, a pass with excellent ball location and timing, generally thrown further down the field or into a tighter window. So here's the main point. With play action, Fields was more efficient, more explosive, and overall a much better quarterback, which is why Matt Nagy allowed him to use it on just 23.8% of his dropbacks, 26th in the league among quarterbacks who played at least 20% of their team's snaps. This is kind of a bombshell report that nobody's talking about, but this explains a lot about why Fields did not succeed last season. Look, plain and simple, what this says is Justin Fields loves the play action, just like Mitch Trubisky did too. A lot of quarterbacks like it. There's no issue with it. If you have a good run game, it works. The Bears had a good run game. It worked for Justin Fields. Matt Nagy never called it. We're seeing proof right here. Now, the question is anybody going to hold him accountable? Of course not, because nobody cares. I do. See, when Matt Nagy goes to apply for new jobs in 4 or 5 years, tries to get a new head coaching job, I want people to remember this statistic. We're talking about a young, potentially elite quarterback who has the potential to get there, being hindered purposefully by his head coach. Justin Fields, on play action, had a 102.2 passer rating. Without it, it was 65.5, and yet Matt Nagy called just 24% of his plays play action. Does any of that make sense? This sounds like purposeful sabotage. How hard is it to just conform to your quarterback? How big of an ego must you have to not listen to what your players need, not what you want? It's pretty simple to me. Good bosses, good coaches, they work off their employees or their players. What works well for you, let's do it. Good companies, successful companies in this world, in this country, they, for the most part today, conform to their employees. What works for you? What system can we implement? How can we make you succeed in this environment? I don't understand why you wouldn't want that to happen, but yet for some reason, we see it here, that was the case with Matt Nagy. That's what happened with Matt Nagy and Justin Fields, and we have more proof now. More proof is coming out. The truth can never hide. Matt Nagy may have tried to run away to Kansas City to keep this under wraps, but eventually the numbers will come out. The truth will continue to come out. People will report on this and talk about it. I know I will. Even if it's unpopular, it needs to be said. Stuff like this needs to be said. This is a travesty to read these numbers. It's a travesty to read these numbers. He succeeded on the play action, 102.2 passer rating. All 10 of his interceptions came without play action. Now look, I get it. You can't be fully reliant on play action. You have to be a well-rounded quarterback. I fully understand that. But he's a rookie, had no offensive line, very little weapons. Trying to get acclimated to the NFL, why not throw your quarterback a bone? Come on. He runs. He's mobile in the pocket. I know you want him to be a pocket passer, but maybe that's not who he is, and that's okay. It works in the NFL. All 10 of his interceptions occurred on non-play action passes. That's a huge red flag. And the fact that more play actions were called and no changes were made, despite knowing those stats, is even worse. That's the scary part. That goes to show you, this was sabotage. In some capacity, you can't tell me otherwise. I'm sorry. Whether it was intentional or not, something happened there. The Bears are not stupid. Matt Nagy isn't stupid. They know these numbers exist. If you knew that your quarterback succeeded on play action and didn't when it wasn't called, why did you call it only 24% of the time, which was 26th most in the league? It'd be different if you had no run game. You got a run game. My goodness, Herbert, Montgomery, you had a run game, and you never called anything. It's just unacceptable. This treatment is unacceptable. So I'm happy Matt Nagy's gone, but these numbers need to be noted, and this report needs to be spoken about. I'm very disappointed. I know Justin Fields is tough. He'll get through it. Not like Josh Rosen or other quarterbacks who've been broken. I understand that. But the fact is, he could have been broken. He still could be broken because of Matt Nagy. That's the scary part here. That's what people don't really talk about as much. Everybody just assumes Justin Fields is going to be fine now with the new coach and with the new system. He could still have scarring from this system. I don't know what kind of system this even was. That's why I said from the very beginning, Matt Nagy shouldn't even be allowed to coach high schoolers anymore. If he can't set up his quarterback for success in the NFL, and in some cases, according to some reports, purposefully did it, according to The Athletic, about Mitch Trubisky, I don't trust him with any quarterback. I don't trust him near a football field. It may sound harsh, but it's the truth. Can't argue with that. We have numbers, we have irrefutable evidence to prove it. He should not be allowed near a football field again. And yet, he could be the heir apparent to Andy Reid, according to some reports, as well. I guess I weep for Patrick Mahomes and his future, because if Matt Nagy purposefully sabotaged two young quarterbacks who had potential, Justin Fields more potential than Mitch Trubisky, and we got a problem here. We have a serious issue. And it goes back to who hired Matt Nagy and who thought he'd be a great coach. George McCaskey, Ted Phillips. Both of them. That makes it even scarier. I don't want to have to keep retreading the past. I know it's over. But really, when you think about what happened and how the Bears approached this entire situation from 2018 and hiring Matt Nagy, hiring Ryan Pace, and making changes like this, we got a problem. This is not good. This is not right. This is not acceptable. Bears fans shouldn't accept it. The NFL shouldn't accept it. I don't think it's funny or it's a joke that Justin Fields was never catered to. It's not funny. It's stupid. Be better. Hire a better coach. Hire somebody who actually cares about development and cares about his players. I've said this a number of times on my program. For the most part, even in the NFL, your players are like your kids. I know you don't need to babysit them. They're grown men, but still, they're like your kids. Don't you want them to succeed? Don't you want to get the best that you can out of them? Matt Nagy didn't do that half the time. Sometimes he did. 2018, good example. But after that, it kind of got out of his hands. It snowballed in the wrong direction. I just feel for Justin Fields a lot now, especially. Now with these numbers coming out, especially. I understand being harsh on what he did. The fumbles, of course, were unacceptable. But he wasn't catered to at all. This was Mitch Trubisky 2.0. I want to see Fields play with a real coach, a real game plan, a game plan that's catered to him, a game plan that won't screw him or bite him in the butt every 5 minutes. A game plan that won't allow for 9 sacks in his debut. A game plan that will allow him to use play action more often because it helps and it works for him. That's what I want to see. Shame on the Bears, shame on Matt Nagy for not doing that for him from the jump. This is an investment. How many times do we have to say it here? This is an investment. Rookie quarterback, you need a quarterback to win in the NFL. You drafted him, 11th overall. Invest in him. Help him. It's not too difficult. Why do other teams do it so easily, but yet the Bears can't? They always get it wrong, whether it be coach, whether it be GM, whether it be personnel around him. They can never get the quarterback position right. And most of the times, it's through no fault of the quarterback himself, especially in the case with Justin Fields and his performance last year. That was not his fault. There were issues, for sure, especially with the fumbling, but the majority of his numbers that he put up were not his fault. Look, I just showed you. He succeeded on play action all the time. 102.2 passer rating. All of his interceptions came on non-play action plays, and they were called non-play action plays 75% of the time. So only 25% of the time did Justin Fields actually have a chance to do what he liked to do. Thank you, Matt Nagy. And this is why I say give it more time. I'm not going to say Justin Fields is a bust right away, right now, based on those numbers. Those numbers were bust-worthy, but they weren't his fault. Let's see him with a real coach, with a real offense, with somebody who actually gives a damn about him. Matt Nagy did not give a damn about him. And we've seen it. There's proof at this point. We've seen it. Let's find somebody who actually cares about his development, about his well-being, about what he could be in the NFL, not just somebody who claims he's an offensive guru and then screw him and throw him away. Thanks for watching today's show here on BPON TV, channel 59.3 in Roku. Really appreciate the time. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Jon Z Sports and on Facebook at Jon Zaghloul. And to watch more of this show, search up Sports Talk Chicago, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, sportstalkchicago.com, and tune in right here every night at 10:30 on BPON TV. So long, everyone.